Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye Nasta Prayeshu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, text number 42, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Really? It says 41 here.
You did 41 yesterday.
Oh.
Is it written Vrishashya?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Vrishashya Nastam Trin Hadam Vrishashya Nasatam Trin Pad Vrishashya Nastam Trin Padam Tapa Socham Dayam Iti Tapa Socham Dayam Iti Pratishan Dadha Ashvasya Pratisandhadha Ashvasya Mahim Cha Samavardhayat Vrishasya Nastam Strin Padam Tapaso Cham Dayam Iti Pratisandhada Ashvasya Mahim Cha Samavardhayat Vrishasya Nastam Strin Padam Tapaso Cham Dayam Iti Pratisandhada Ashvasya Mahim Cha Samavardhayat
Vrishasya Nastam Strin Padam Tapaso Cham Dayamiti Pratisanda Ashvasya Mahim Cha Samavardhayat
Vrishasya Nastam Trin Padam Tapasaucham Dayamiti Pratisandada Ashvasya Mahim Cha Samavardhayat
Vrishasya Nastam Strin Padam Tapasaucham Dayamiti Pratisandada Ashvasya Mahim Cha Samavardhayat
Vrishasya Nastam Trin Padam
Vrishashana Santavin Padan
Tapasocham dayam iti.
Tapasocham dayamiti
Pratisandhada asvasya.
Pratisandhada asvasya
Ahimcha samavardaya.
Mahimcha samavardaya
Visasyanastam trimpadam.
Visasyanastam trimpadam.
Tapasaucham dayamiti.
Tapasaucham dayamiti.
Pratisandahavaspasya.
Pratisandhadasvasya
Ahimcha samavardaya.
Mahimcha samavardaya
Vasyanastam trimpadam.
Visasyanastam trimpadam.
Tapasakam dayamiti.
Tapasaucham dayamiti
Pratisandhadadaspasya.
Pratisandhadasvasya
Mahimcham samavadaya.
Mahimcha samavardaya
Visasyanastam trimpadam.
Visasyanastam trimpadam.
Tapasocham dayam iti.
Tapasaucham dayamiti
Sandhata asvasya.
Pratisandhadasvasya
Ahimcha samavardaya.
Mahimcha samavardaya
Visasyanastam trimpadam.
Visasyanastam trimpadam.
Tapasocham dayam iti.
Tapasaucham dayamiti.
Pratisandhada asvasya.
Pratisandhadasvasya
Ahimcham samvardaya.
Ahimcha
samavardaya
Vrishasya of the bull,
of the bull,
the personality of religion.
the personality of religion,
Nastan,
Nashtan,
lost.
lost,
Trin,
Trin,
3.
three,
Padan,
Vadam,
legs.
legs,
Tapaha,
Tapaha
austerity.
austerity
Socham,
Socham
cleanliness.
cleanliness,
Dayam,
Dayam,
mercy.
mercy,
Iti,
Iti,
thus.
thus,
Prakti Sandadhe,
Pratisandhadhe
re-established.
re-established,
Ashvasya,
Asvasya
by encouraging activities.
by encouraging activities,
Mahim,
Mahim
the earth.
the earth,
Cha,
Cha,
and
and
Samavard Hayat,
Samavardaya,
perfectly improved.
perfectly improved.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Please repeat. Thereafter, the king reestablished
the king reestablished
the lost legs
the lost legs
of the personality of religion,
of the personality of religion,
the bull,
the bull,
and by encouraging activities,
And by encouraging activities,
he sufficiently
he sufficiently
improved the condition of the earth.
improve the
condition of the earth.
I'm going to read the translation again and read the purport. Thereafter, the king reestablished the lost legs of the personality of religion, the bull, and by encouraging activities, he sufficiently improved the conditions of the earth. Purport. By designating particular places for the personality of Kali, Maharaj Parikshit practically cheated Kali. In the presence of Kali, Dharma, in the shape of a bull, and the earth, in the shape of a cow, he could actually estimate the general condition of his kingdom. And therefore, he at once took proper steps to reestablish the legs of the bull, namely austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. And for the general benefit of the people of the world, he saw that the gold stock might be employed for stabilization. Gold is certainly a generator of falsity, intoxication, prostitution, enmity, and violence. But under the guidance of a proper king or public leader or a brahmana or sannyasi, the same gold can be properly utilized to reestablish the lost legs of the bull, the personality of religion. Maharaj Parikshit, therefore, like his grandfather Arjuna, collected all illicit gold kept for the propensities of Kali and employed it in the Sankirtan Yajna as per instruction of the Srimad Bhagavatam. As we have suggested before, one's accumulated wealth may be divided into 3 parts for distribution, namely 50% for the service of the Lord, 25% for the family members, and 25% for personal necessities. Spending 50% for the service of the Lord, or for propagation of spiritual knowledge in society by way of the Sankirtan Yajna, is the maximum display of human mercy. People of the world are generally in darkness regarding spiritual knowledge, especially in regard to the devotional service of the Lord, and therefore to propagate the systematic transcendental knowledge of devotional service is the greatest mercy that one can show in this world. When everyone is taught to sacrifice 50% of his accumulated gold for the Lord's service, certainly austerity, cleanliness, and mercy automatically ensue, and thus the lost 3 legs of the personality of religion are automatically established. When there is sufficient austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, naturally Mother Earth is completely satisfied, and there is very little chance for Kali to infiltrate the structure of human society. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Shtava Padaya Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Devam Guruvani Pracharanya Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtata Desatani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this drama is kind of coming to a point when Kali was found beating the legs of the bull, and the bull was on one leg only, truthfulness, and the cow was also afraid and standing, and Parikshit Maharaj came up and dealt with this horrible person who was abusing the cow and the bull, religion personified and the earth personified. So, here Prabhupada says that Parikshit Maharaj cheated Kali, because Kali, he was going to kill Kali right on the spot for even touching the cow and the bull, abusing them. He was pulled out his sword and he was ready to kill him right there on the spot. But Kali surrendered, and because Parikshit Maharaj was a pure devotee and a proper Raj Rishi, saintly king, he gave shelter to the surrendered person. Kali took off his fake royal attire and his whatever headdress he had on. He fell at the feet of Parikshit Maharaj, and so Parikshit Maharaj, didn't have any place for him to live really. He said you can live where there's gold is hoarded, but there wasn't any place like that in his kingdom, as described here, that Prabhupada said he decided to take all the gold and use it for the Sankirtan movement, to spread Krishna consciousness, and that would reestablish the 4 principles of religiosity. So, thinking about this whole purport and meditating, I was thinking how wonderful it was that Srila Prabhupada came, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the inaugurator of the Sankirtan movement, and in this age, he came in the midst of drunkards and degraded people, and especially there when Lord Chaitanya was, doing his preaching work, Jagai and Madhya were there, severe drunkards and murderers, and a lot of the Muslim rulers were like that. They were total dacoits and robbing and killing and just doing all kinds of horrible activity, which was deteriorating the religious principles. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to establish the Sankirtan mission, and by that transcendental process of devotional service, it infused society with the spiritual potency to be able to follow the religious principles. So when Srila Prabhupada came, he was that empowered devotee who was solidly fixed in pure devotional service, empowered by the Lord to come and preach, and struggled. But Srila Prabhupada's potency, he established the regulative principles of religion, which was described yesterday. Prabhupada thought it was going to be impossible to do in this climate of the U.S., where everybody is gambling and taking intoxication and having illicit sex and eating meat. There was no other, people had no clue that there was any other way of life, pretty much. So Prabhupada came and engaged the hard-earned money of all those devotees who went out on Sankirtan, and those who, he engaged as much money as he got, he engaged it instantly. He didn't save a bunch of money. Of course, he did save some BBT money to help open temples after the printing was done. But here Prabhupada's emphasizing again the importance of spending money on spreading the Sankirtan movement, not just spending money on something useless, but spending the money on having festivals and maintaining temples and distributing prasadam, and of course distributing the transcendental Srimad Bhagavatam and the other transcendental books that he translated, which give people the strength to actually become followers of religious principles. Without this knowledge, people don't have the information to have the strength to do it. It's not possible. Because without this spiritual education, Prabhupada emphasized that so much, and we see that until people start reading Prabhupada's books, they generally don't become devotees. It takes time for them to become convinced, which is naturally very easily done. Good confirmation.
Prabhupada book ski.
Maybe we don't do that.
So it's described that here in the purport that therefore to propagate the systematic transcendental knowledge of devotional service is the greatest mercy that one can show in this world. That's it. That's the highest, as he made clear all along, the highest welfare work is to give this information. So now, we have more facility even using the internet, like you're filming this. We can get on different types of social media and propagate, the glories of the Lord as described here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, as Srila Prabhupada so amazingly describes purport after purport. And this knowledge and the activities of devotional service that Prabhupada gave us are non-different from the potency of the Lord's activities himself. When Krishna came, he established that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even as a baby, like when he killed Putana. Prabhupada said he didn't have to meditate to become God. He was only a baby and he killed this giant demon. So in the wonderful Brahma Samhita, this beautiful verse, Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manashu Yat Praninam Pratipalam Smaratam Upetya Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jagat Jajastram Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose glory ever triumphantly dominates the mundane world by the activity of his own pastimes, being reflected in the mind of recollecting souls as the transcendental entity of ever blissful cognita rasa. So Krishna's activities don't have any competition with the material world, with the material energy. And we saw that Prabhupada's potency didn't have any competition either. We were convinced that we were going to take over the world, weren't we?
Yep.
We were like, I didn't have any doubt about it, because Prabhupada was invincible. Prabhupada was so far above the modes of nature and so far above all the envy and jealousy and hatred and corruption of the material world that his every step was triumphantly dominant over the material energy. He was totally absorbed in Krishna's internal potency and pure love for Krishna. So he didn't have, there was no lack of him spreading Krishna consciousness. So this process of Krishna consciousness is meant for elevating us so that we also can become transcendental and become triumphant in this material world to help spread Krishna consciousness and just to be Krishna conscious. And so it's not that it's limited just to only the powerful pure devotees, but anybody who takes the process of devotional service and steadily advances in Krishna consciousness. You know, we've seen so many devotees who are empowered to spread Krishna consciousness. I mean, I don't keep track of any of the book distribution these days, but I remember back in the old days. You know, the devotees, the Sankirtan devotees were all getting up way before Mangalarti, chanting their rounds, you know, reading and chanting and learning shlokas and going out and distributing books, and they had spiritual potency. And it was a competition. Prabhupada liked it. The competition was who can get more spiritually potent, in a sense, and go out and have it and be used by Krishna as a tool to spread Krishna consciousness. So we saw directly, and we see directly now, by trying to become Krishna conscious, how people get affected. So all these things are completely relevant, and our lives are completely relevant, and we may not think that we're of any influence in this world, but the influence that the devotees have rendering service to the Lord, as soon as you come in contact with some person who's absorbed in the material energy, they get influenced by your association, by the devotees' association. They get uplifted. They can feel it. There's not, because the internal potency doesn't have any it can't be stopped. It can't be, you know, filtered through the material world. It's pure and it goes without stopping. This kirtan vibration, it doesn't stop by the walls. It goes completely, as described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You hear it in Brahmaloka when Lord Chaitanya was chanting. So how far is that? So the spiritual potency of devotional service doesn't have material limitations. So the thousands and thousands of devotees that are having kirtan every day on this planet now, right? Thousands.
Yeah.
Every day, this planet's really getting purified. We may not see it as quickly as we think we would like to see it, you know, but because we're getting old and we're going to leave the body soon, but it's happening. It's happening all over the world. It's going on, and the strength that people get will allow them to follow the principles of religion. So this information and this kirtan and these festivals have such a huge impact in this world. And Prabhupada, is the founder Acharya and the standard emblem of pure devotional service and standard emblem of representing Lord Chaitanya as the preacher. So we have his great example to try and become inspired by, in his beautiful purports to be inspired by. And this is the work of Krishna and his devotees. This is the work. Arjuna collected all kinds of money for Yudhishthira Maharaj, all the gold in different places, and they performed the Rajasuya Yajna, and Yudhishthira Maharaj became the king because he was a pure devotee. Just think how that would have changed the atmosphere. From Duryodhana to Yudhishthira. So you think about now who the leaders. Just think if a Vaishnava was the president of the United States. How it would change the atmosphere. How, the propagation of spiritual life could be increased dramatically, and how people would see, like he was describing yesterday, who was describing the hilarious, I thought it was hilarious, that crazy guy was, well, I spent all night drinking Jack Daniels to write some. What was he writing?
A bill, a legislative bill.
I mean, God, that was hilarious. I was like, wow, how classic is that, Here's our leaders, Yeah, down a fifth of Jack Daniels, and I got her done.
And I'm not sure everybody understands what a fifth of Jack Daniels will do to somebody.
A couple of shots, what to speak of a whole bottle of it, right? So it would really straighten out people's minds in a huge way, to see that, oh my gosh, here's a person in office who doesn't gamble, who doesn't cheat, who doesn't lie, who's completely truthful, who doesn't have illicit sex and disrespect, everybody, and who doesn't kill animals, who eats only food offered to God. That would be like a shocking, like a heavy shock wave through the whole country, right? To think that, oh my gosh, now we have a leader who's righteous? How is this possible, So, of course, it's not possible right now, but just think how wonderful that would be, and how wonderful it must have been when Parikshit Maharaj, Kali made his appearance and he just routed him right out. No gambling, no intoxication. And Prabhupada says in some of the purports of the chapter that, to improve the situation in society, all the gambling casinos have to be closed. All the slaughterhouses have to be closed. All the prostitution houses have to be closed. All the different, illicit things going on have to be stopped. It's like, whoa. That would put Louisiana out of business, right?
Yeah.
All the gambling and the whole thing would be like, wow. But this is the serious nature of how degraded it is here, that because there's zero standard of religious principles almost, society is, now the leadership gets worse and worse, and now the standard of spiritual consciousness disintegrates to nothing. So Prabhupada said, well, ISKCON will go down in history as saving the world. It means that the more we put on festivals, the more we preach, the more we do programs here and promote cow protection instead of cow slaughter, then gradually people start to wake up. It wakes people up. The kirtans, the book distribution, it wakes people up to understand more of these things. So anyway, this is kind of a verse about the Sankirtan Yajna and about preaching. So Krishna somehow gave me this verse. But beautiful, amazing. And Prabhupada here, I was kind of wonderful how he described. And for the general benefit of the people of the world, he saw that the gold stock might be employed for stabilization. Gold is certainly a generator of falsity, intoxication, prostitution, enmity, and violence, but under the guidance of a proper king or public leader, or a brahmana, or a sannyasi, the same gold can be properly utilized to reestablish the legs of the bull. So he didn't exclude anybody, pretty much, except qualified people and devotees, to be qualified to spend people's money. So if we're going to, we can do that, right?
Mm.
We can get money, we can solicit money from the big rich people and use it in Krishna's service, and it's okay. We don't have to be the king or a sannyasi. We can be our brahmana. We can do our preaching programs as long as we don't misspend the money and spend it all on Krishna for preaching work. And Krishna will give us the facility if we're trying to do something for Him. He's the owner of all the wealth. So if we were trying to do some preaching programs, trying to facilitate what Prabhupada wants, Krishna will give the facility. He'll give it to us to utilize. We may not ever have to use a penny of it on ourselves, but Krishna will give it to us to spread Krishna consciousness as He gave it to Srila Prabhupada. We see that when the devotees are doing preaching, that Krishna engages the money. And then he emphasized again 50% of one's accumulated wealth to give. So those people are out there who have money. And it's our business to, Prabhupada used to say, rescue Sita back from Ravana and utilize, so Sita can serve Ram again. Anyway, I didn't know it was the holiday today, the Gopastami. I don't know really much about the pastime. If somebody has any question or comment about the class or anything about the festival, please. Prabhu, you have some comment?
Well,
Class?
no, I was thinking about, when Prabhupada said, it was impossible, it wasn't just like some rhetorical, that you could see, he really felt like, and I was thinking also on top of the normal intoxication that was in the 20th century in the West, in America, was, alcohol. And the Bowery, where he started, is where most of the defeated, successful people ended up because of addiction to alcohol. But at that time also, we had this new wave where all of a sudden mainstream America became interested in drugs. So we had more intoxication. So sometimes people say, and in some ways it looks like Prabhupada, everything was set up for Prabhupada. It was a perfect storm, so to speak, a perfect moment. But it was also, there were more obstacles put in his way, because there was this whole other new wave going on of drug use that heretofore was just limited to a small segment of the society, I mean, it was a very big thing, I think, in the early 50s that one of the actors in Hollywood was caught with marijuana. That was a big thing. It was like, whoa. And at that point, it became quite, quite the norm almost. It was not anything extraordinary. So he was having to overcome even more, in a sense. And it didn't, like some people sometimes think that, it actually helped. LSD was, helping to get interested in transcendental life. I don't see that at all. That's not a qualification. Taking LSD wasn't a qualification for preparing you to become, a meditator of the Hare Krishna mantra. If anything, it was the opposite. So just increasing Prabhupada's glorification, that's all.
I have something just to add to that, if it's okay.
Sure.
That I think that people that were coming from that drug culture, that the advantage to that was that they may have been more receptive to Prabhupada's message because of being so disgruntled. I mean, that's been discussed so many times. But also because, I was going to say they, but we had this experience like a different dimension or some different kind of, I was going to say reality, like illusion that people from that time were more receptive to it. So maybe I didn't understand exactly what Prabhu said. I'm not disagreeing with him, but and not that taking drugs was a criteria for taking the Krishna consciousness, but it may have been some advantage in that, as I said, there's something beyond this waking reality, and that is that there's a supreme loving God with whom we have an internal relationship, and people may have been receptive to that message because of that. Just a thought that occurred to me.
Yeah, people were willing to take a chance to do something. That makes a difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to step outside the norm, then when Krishna consciousness came along, you're also willing to try that. Especially because it made so much sense to begin with. As soon as we heard about it. He was first.
You're saying that sometimes in this material age, religion has a sense of falling, becoming less. So, in the struggle to combat, all this demonic activity, do you feel that there's like a competition? Do you feel people are being competitive about it to try to express Krishna consciousness? Do you think that's what's going on, possibly?
Well, I was talking about when back, at least in Prabhupada's time, because there was worldwide competition in a sense to go out and distribute Prabhupada's books and to open temples and right. We all wanted to please Prabhupada, so we're trying to distribute as many books as possible. So in some places that's still happening, although our movement has changed a lot in time, and there's not. It used to be everybody was pretty much single back in the original days. Everybody, and even if you weren't single, you lived like you were a brahmachari or brahmacharini, and people were going out and distributing books a lot. And so, I'm not sure if I know what you mean about competition between us.
But competition, do you think as we progress further, like to try to get the message out, do you think that would be proper? Do you think that really is necessary in the future? Do you think it should be just people just be compelled to come towards the
No, it obviously has to be a natural inspiration, But Prabhupada had a tight group that was all his disciples, and he was the absolute most inspiring person in the world, spiritual person. So the devotees felt unlimited inspirations following Prabhupada's program. They felt purified, they felt connected to Prabhupada, they felt inspired by him to the point where we're like, hey, we know that this is reality. We knew that Prabhupada was a pure devotee of Krishna, that Krishna is God, that Goloka Vrindavan is the kingdom of God. There's no doubt in our minds. We didn't have any maybe, no, it was clear as day. Prabhupada was it was so powerful. So we were ready to do anything it took. We didn't care. We were sleep anywhere, do anything, go to jail. We didn't care. We were just pushing and trying to help Prabhupada spread Krishna consciousness. So that enthusiasm came from becoming purified and seeing Prabhupada's example and following the program and feeling inspired, and it was a natural inspiration, really, wasn't it? We all felt very inspired. So yeah, there's the cowherd boys, there's competition who can run and touch Krishna. So Prabhupada encouraged that there's can be spiritual competition. It's not harmful. It's good to try and please Krishna, who's gonna make the most beautiful garland, who's gonna cook the most beautiful feast for the deities, for Janmashtami or whatever our feasts are, it's healthy to try and do something to please Krishna more.
I just said something quick that we were talking about the drug time where everyone was looking, because we had the war, we had so much racism that they're trying to get over, and everyone wanted equality and all that. And then, so I think people were turning to drugs for kind of that escape, and like, we don't want to be part of this society that's, going to war, and we, but I think one thing is the devotees, they advertise, get high on the Maha Mantra and things, so they could take that whole culture and use it in a spiritual way, and say, you can get higher from this, why don't you try this?
Mm.
So it was like it was like a good analogy to say, like you said, they're ready to try anything, so why not try Krishna consciousness?
I was just going to say how that competition, it breeds enthusiasm. Like you can even see in India how some families, they are wanting to do some deity service or, worship the deity that day. And it's years before it's your turn. And everyone is always wanting to do something better. Like you said, increase it. And it just makes you enthusiastic to do more. When you see that, someone's doing something so nice, it's not like you're thinking, I want to do better than them, just for the sake of doing better, but it's the enthusiasm that it brings out in you to make a nicer offering, to make a nicer, outfit or something for the Lord. It brings happiness instead of envy. You're doing it for Krishna life.
I saw some photos of, I forget which temple, maybe it was Durban or something, South Africa. They had a Govardhan Puja, their offering. I think the table was at least 3/4, maybe even the whole length of this temple room, full of preparations. I don't know how many thousands of preparations were on this table. It was like huge. It's like the photo was like one of those infinite photos, It's like the table was so long, you're like, wow, where's the end of the table, So they have that kind of mood there. One of the devotees in Dallas is from there, and they say, yeah, everybody's really, they're always enthusiastic like that to cook feasts and do all kinds of nice stuff, and it increases the enthusiasm like anything, because everybody wants to.
I was going to say that I heard a class, I listen often to Chaitanya Prabhu, the spiritual scientist, and on Prabhupada's disappearance day, he gave a lecture about how practical Prabhupada was. And his inspiration was from Giriraj Maharaj, who was writing a book about the whole Juhu pastime with Prabhupada, how Prabhupada secured that property. And so he's also speaking to different people, Giriraj Maharaj, who were involved in that, and Shruti Kirti Prabhu was there during that time with Prabhupada, and so he asked Shruti Kirti Prabhu what he thought was Prabhupada's shining quality, and Maharaj was actually surprised that Shruti Kirti Prabhu said he never met anybody that was more practical than Prabhupada. And so Maharaj was a little taken aback by that, like there's so many shining qualities Prabhupada had, we know his bhakti, his determination, so practicality, but then he was meditating on it, and Prabhupada, just the great opportunist, the great spiritual opportunist, that whatever it took to get people to take to this sadhana bhakti, that Prabhupada was willing to do. And so then he gave the example that one boy that wasn't very familiar with Krishna consciousness that came in the very early days, Chaitanya Chandra was given this example that he asked, what is it like, to experience the bliss of Krishna consciousness? So Prabhupada was always looking for something that people, being practical, that people could relate to. And Prabhupada said, it's like an ocean of LSD. And okay, yeah, I like that. So, just whatever it took, and however he could possibly, infiltrate that person, and inspire them to take a taste of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
I remember somebody, he was giving a class to some of the devotees back in the late 60s, and there was the fear of the draft board, so Prabhupada was giving a class, and he said, somebody asked him about the spiritual world, he said, there's no draft board. Relieve everybody's minds a little bit, or enliven them somehow. Anybody else? Yogendra?
Well, you go past me, Radharani wanted to see Krishna, but her mother-in-law wouldn't let her go. So
Can you say a little louder?
Radharani wanted to see Krishna, but her mother-in-law wouldn't let her go. So Krishna sent Subal to check up on things, and Radharani switched clothes with him, and she took on off as a cowherd boy, and he stayed back with Radharani, and they fooled the mother-in-law. So that's Gopastama.
So who is the person again? Radharani and Subal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to repeat it since it's, right? Did you hear that? Did you record it already?
I didn't hear it that well.
Oh, okay. Anyway, Radharani's mother-in-law, right?
Yeah.
Wanted to keep,
Jotila.
Jotila wouldn't let Radharani out, so she switched clothes with Subal, the cowherd boy, so she could get out and go see Krishna. And
He was wondering like how to do it because, Radharani was wondering how to escape because, she's built differently than the boy. So what, they figured out that if he was looking for a calf or something, like he missed his calf, so he came in to see if Radharani knew, and then she brought the calf out, like this. So no one would really see, and so they just thought it was him leaving.
so she carried out a calf so nobody could recognize her form.
And Krishna had sent Subal because Subal was always able to somehow, connive and work his way in and be successful. But when Radharani came back, she first was pretending that she was Subal, and then Krishna was like, oh, so disturbed. Oh, I can't believe that you weren't able to, bring my beloved here. And then so she was just playing along with it until, of course, it was revealed that, oh no, it's really me, So.
Didn't they have similar features also?
Yeah, Subal and Radharani, very similar, their features.
They're related, aren't they?
They're related. Sridham is her brother.
Sridham's the brother.
Subal, I don't know. Sridham is her brother. But we're so fortunate. There she is, the one day in the year, giving her darshan. I sent out a mass text so everybody can come and see.
And in New Orleans, two devotees made a new outfit. So if anyone is in New Orleans today, they have, they're doing like a festival, I imagine, with the new outfit. And I think they're probably showing her feet, even though I did tell her we've been told that that's not proper now.
Yeah, I just heard that there's now a GBC ruling, actually, that's coming from the Sringakavacha, who is the Minister of Deity Worship, that it just shouldn't be done. But maybe it'll take a while for that to...
Even on Radhastami?
Yeah.
Yeah, except in Vrindavan or in Mayapur, where the pilgrims expect it to be done, and there's some tradition of it being done in those pilgrimage spots. So otherwise,
There's a tradition that we do it here too, right?
Traditionally, yes.
That's
How many years have we done it for here, right?
Right.
For a lot of years, but it all started after Prabhupada, and it all started because of, they can't really trace it back. Some devotee in Vrindavan, because a lot of the temples in Vrindavan started at Krishna Balaram, and then other temples around the world gradually also did it. So when they researched it, though, they really couldn't find any reference from Prabhupada to do it, but they found just the opposite, where at least twice, he said, never showed Radharani's lotus feet, show Krishna's feet. The only reference they had to doing it was that he told Vishnu John Maharaj on the bus that he could show Radharani's lotus feet. But it seemed to be, a specific instruction to Vishnu John on that traveling bus party.
What did he tell Prabhu? I didn't hear what you said. He told Vishnu John.
That he could show Radharani's feet when dressing the deities.
On the bus.
Isn't that to the devotees or is that to the public?
It's public.
To the public, as far as I know.
I guess because she's most chaste woman, so a chaste woman doesn't show her feet, right? That's the
I don't know. Most ladies' feet are showing, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Lakshman used to look at Sita's feet because he had taken a vow of celibacy while staying with him, so he wouldn't even look at her. He would only look at her feet.
So what's the reason that the feet is not shown?
I don't know. I'm not sure
Do
that
they do it in Dallas?
Oh yeah.
They still do it in Dallas. See, we got into a jam because somebody made it a debate. One of the devotees standing here made it a debate. And he wrote the GBC and he wrote the deity minister, and so then it turned into a debate. And Gura Kesava, who is one of our pundits concerning deity worship in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, he researched it along with the deity minister, and that was his ultimate conclusion that we can only find reference not to show Radharani's feet, and the only reference to show her feet seemed to be a specific instruction to Vishnu John Maharaj, and not to anyone else, because he told the head pujari at the Los Angeles temple when it was ISKCON's world headquarters never to show Radharani's feet.
So
And
they've never.
he said use the word never, and my memory is not perfectly clear about it. He may have been asking concerning Radhastami or something like that, but the letter is easily available. I mean, you can get those letters. So this was maybe 4 years ago, and so we didn't have much of a choice because it was our GBC, and he said don't show Radharani's feet because that was the conclusion. That was the only stance he could take. And they gave some sort of preference to Vrindavan and Mayapur because of being major pilgrimage spots where it's traditionally done in those spots.
Any other comments?
I think we should
Yeah.
What did you say?
revolt.
Well, what?
All right, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Ki Jai!